The vampire king recognized the waitress's perfume. "Everyone, get out!" He then locked the doors. The rain pounded against the tall windows of the castle, each drop echoing like a drumbeat in the silent night. The hall was vast, filled with polished marble floors and towering chandeliers that cast a soft golden glow. Outside, lightning danced across the sky, illuminating the jagged edges of the castle spires. Inside, the nobles and courtiers moved with careful grace, their laughter and chatter filling the grand banquet hall. Among them moved a young waitress, carrying trays of sparkling crystal glasses filled with rich red wine. Her name was Elara. Elara moved with quiet precision, her steps careful on the cold marble. She was small and delicate, almost like a shadow moving among the towering figures of the vampire court. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and she wore a simple black dress that contrasted sharply with the glittering gowns and suits of the guests. But there was something unusual about her, something that went unnoticed by everyone except one man. Lord Veyron, the vampire king, stood near the far end of the hall, a figure of power and control. His presence was magnetic, drawing the eyes of everyone in the room. Tall, with broad shoulders and skin as pale as moonlight, he wore a dark cloak embroidered with silver threads. His eyes, however, were what truly commanded attention. Molten silver, glowing faintly in the dim light. Every movement he made was precise, deliberate, and dangerous. As Elara carried a tray toward the king, she felt a shiver run down her spine. It wasn't from the cold marble or the chill in the castle. It was something else. Something about the way he looked at her made her heart race. Veyron's eyes locked on her the moment she entered the hall. And then it hit him. The scent. A subtle fragrance, soft and sweet, like night-blooming roses carried on a gentle breeze. He froze, his hand gripping the edge of the table as memories long buried clawed their way back. The perfume was familiar. Hauntingly familiar. Centuries had passed since he had smelled it, yet here it was, drifting toward him on the fragile figure of a mortal girl. His lips parted slightly, though no words escaped. Time seemed to slow. The storm outside faded into a distant murmur, the clinking of glasses and laughter dulling in the background. Elara, unaware of the recognition, approached the table with a nervous smile. She placed the glasses carefully, bowing slightly. "Good evening, my lord," she said softly. Veyron's gaze did not waver. He could not speak, could not move, as if the scent had rooted him to the spot. Every nerve in his body was alive, every memory and every regret washing over him like a tidal wave. He remembered her, or someone like her, long ago. A mortal woman whose laughter had lit up the night, whose presence had brought warmth to the cold emptiness of his immortal life. And then, betrayal, pain, loss, death. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak. "Leave the hall," he said, his voice low but carrying across the room. The words were quiet, but the effect was immediate. Courtiers froze, their eyes turning toward him in alarm. Elara blinked, confused. "Excuse me, my lord?" she asked. Veyron's gaze did not leave her. "Everyone!" he repeated, louder this time. "Get out, now." A ripple of panic ran through the hall. Nobles exchanged nervous glances. Servants dropped trays of wine. Some dared to ask questions, but the king's presence silenced them instantly. No one dared challenge him. Elara's heart raced. She had never seen a reaction like this before, even from the most powerful of lords. Something about her, or perhaps the scent she carried, had stirred him, awakened something he thought long buried. Veyron moved swiftly toward the doors at the far end of the hall. With a snap of his fingers, the heavy oaken doors slammed shut, locking the exit. The sound reverberated through the hall, echoing off the marble walls. Panic turned into fear. The courtiers began to retreat slowly, some even crawling on hands and knees to escape, while servants rushed to follow, leaving the hall empty except for the king and the small girl who had unknowingly caused this storm. Elara's pulse quickened. What is happening?" she whispered to herself, stepping back instinctively. Behran's gaze softened for a moment, but only slightly, as he took in her figure. The girl seemed ordinary, fragile and unaware of the power that surrounded her. Yet there was something else, something in her eyes, something in the faint trembling of her hands that mirrored the past he had tried to forget. He approached slowly, each step echoing like a drumbeat in the empty hall. "Do you know what you are?" he asked, his voice low, almost a growl, yet filled with curiosity and pain. Elara shook her head, stepping back. I don't understand, my lord. I was just serving." Veyron studied her, trying to read the truth in her eyes. She did not lie, not intentionally, yet the connection between them was undeniable. The perfume, the way she moved, even the very air around her seemed to hum with a familiar magic he had not sensed in centuries. "Your scent," he murmured, almost to himself. "It belongs to someone I loved, someone I lost." Elara's eyes widened. I don't understand." He stopped a few feet away from her, the glow of his eyes reflecting the storm outside. "It does not matter if you understand," he said. "What matters is that you are here, and that you carry what should have been gone forever." The wind outside howled, rattling the windows. Lightning illuminated the hall, casting their shadows long and intertwined across the marble floor. Elara shivered, not only from the cold but from the strange pull she felt toward this man. A mixture of fear, awe, and something she could not name. Veyron's hand moved slightly, almost instinctively toward her. But he stopped, clenching his fist at his side. He could not touch her. Not yet. There was too much history, too much danger, too much that remained unspoken. And yet, he could not look away. "You will stay," he said finally, his voice stronger now. "You will not leave this hall until I know, until I understand why you are here." Elara felt her legs tremble. She wanted to speak, to protest, to run, but something in his presence held her still. She nodded slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. Veyron turned slightly, scanning the empty hall, his mind racing. The courtiers were gone, the servants had fled, and the storm raged outside. For the first time in centuries, he felt exposed, vulnerable. And yet, there was a spark of hope he had not felt in ages. "Do not try to deceive me," he warned, his voice cutting through the silence. "I can see everything, everything that lies hidden." Elara swallowed hard. I promise I am not trying to deceive you," she said softly. Her words sounded small, almost fragile, but there was a strength beneath them she did not fully understand herself. Veyron studied her for a long moment, the silence stretching between them. Then, with a sudden motion, he moved toward the center of the hall, motioning for her to follow. The marble floor echoed beneath his boots. Pow! Elara followed cautiously, her senses alert, aware that she had stepped into a world far larger and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. They reached the grand fireplace at the far end of the hall. Flames flickered, casting a warm glow that seemed to push back the shadows at the edges of the room. Veyron turned to face her fully, his eyes searching hers. "Do you know what this means?" he asked quietly. Elara shook her head. "No, I don't. It means," he said, "that the past has returned. That which I thought lost forever is here, and it may save me or destroy me." Elara felt a chill run down her spine. The weight of his words, the storm outside, the emptiness of the hall, it all pressed upon her like a tide she could not hold back. She realized, with a mixture of fear and awe, that her life had changed in a single moment. She was no longer a mere mortal waitress serving drinks in a grand hall. She was part of something older, darker, and far more dangerous. The candlelight flickered, the shadows danced across the walls, and the storm roared louder, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Veyron's gaze softened slightly, though his face remained stern. "You do not yet understand," he said. "But soon you will. And when that time comes, you will have to decide what you are willing to risk." Elara's lips parted, but no words came. She could only nod, her heart hammering in her chest. She had no idea what fate awaited her, only that it was tied inexorably to the man before her, a man whose power, whose sorrow, and whose past could consume her as easily as protect her. Veyron's eyes lingered on her, a storm of emotions hidden behind their silver depths. He turned toward the center of the hall again, and with a voice that was both a command and a plea, he said, "Do not move. Do not speak. And above all, do not betray me, for the moment you do, nothing will save you." Elara swallowed hard, standing frozen in the middle of the marble floor. Outside, lightning struck again, illuminating the hall in a blinding flash. For a moment she thought she saw the shadows behind Veyron stir, as if something ancient and unseen was watching, waiting. And then, with a sound like a distant rumble, the doors at the far end of the hall, locked moments ago by the king's command, vibrated slightly. The storm outside seemed to reach its peak, wind and rain battering the castle walls. Alara's breath caught in her throat. She was trapped in the hall with a man she did not fully understand, a man who recognized something ancient and powerful within her, and outside the world was turning dark and wild, signaling that the night and her story had only just begun. The storm outside continued to rage, wind howling and rain hammering the castle walls. Inside the hall, the echoes of Veyron's command still lingered, mingling with the scent of wet stone and the faint perfume that had drawn his attention. Elara stood frozen, her heart hammering in her chest. She could barely breathe, as though the very air in the hall had thickened, holding her captive in the moment. Veyron paced slowly before her, each step deliberate, his silver eyes unblinking. He was a figure of immense power and menace. Yet tonight, there was something softer hidden behind that dangerous gaze, something vulnerable, almost human. Centuries of rule and endless nights had hardened him, but the faint trace of her perfume had cracked a door long sealed. You are here for a reason," he said finally, his voice low and resonant. It carried both accusation and curiosity. "I can feel it. I can feel the threads that bind you to this place, to me." Elara swallowed hard. I don't understand," she whispered. "I was just serving the guests. I didn't know. I didn't do anything." Veyron's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand yet, but soon you will." He stopped pacing and studied her from head to toe, as if searching for the truth buried in her very being. "The scent you carry, it is not just a fragrance, it is a memory. A memory I thought lost forever." Elara's head tilted slightly, confusion mixing with fear. "Memory? I don't know what you mean." Veyron's gaze softened, though it did not lose its intensity. He took a step closer, and Elara instinctively stepped back, her bare feet brushing against the cold marble. "Long ago," he began, "I loved someone, a mortal. Her laughter, her warmth. It was brighter than the sun and softer than moonlight. But she betrayed me, or so I believed. Her absence, her death, it has haunted me for centuries." Elara's breath caught. There was something in his words that resonated deep within her, though she could not explain why. A strange pull stirred in her chest, a feeling she had never experienced before. "And now," Veyron continued, "you are here. And you carry the same essence, the same fragrance. It is as if fate has brought her back through you." Elara felt a shiver run down her spine. I don't know what to say. I am not her, I am just me." Veyron's eyes softened further, though a flicker of pain lingered in them. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "or perhaps you are more than you know. Perhaps you are the bridge between the past and what I have yet to face. Perhaps you are the chance I have been denied for centuries." The hall was silent, except for the sound of the storm and the occasional crack of thunder. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally along the walls, moving as if alive. Elara's pulse quickened. There was magic in this place, old, powerful, and dangerous magic. And now, it seemed, she had awakened a part of it merely by being here. Bayran moved toward the center of the hall again, his gaze never leaving her. "Do you understand what this means?" he asked.
Ilara shook her head. "No."
"I don't. I only know I feel something. Something I cannot explain." "Good," he said, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "Confusion is the beginning. Fear is the teacher. Only when you face them both will you understand your purpose, and mine." Ilara shivered, unsure whether it was the cold or the intensity of his presence. She had never met anyone like him. Everything about him radiated power and danger, yet there was an undeniable magnetism that drew her closer, despite her fear. "You must stay," Veyran continued, his voice firm. "The night is not safe for mortals who wander where they should not." "And you are no ordinary mortal." Elara's hands trembled. I don't even know why I am here." "Why me?" Veyran's eyes softened once more, perhaps because fate has chosen you, or perhaps because it is the last chance for redemption, for both of us. He turned abruptly, moving toward the massive fireplace at the far end of the hall. The flames flickered and danced, casting long shadows that twisted across the marble floor. Ilara followed cautiously, her eyes flicking to the shadows. They seemed to move with a life of their own, stretching and bending, as though reacting to their presence. Veyran stopped before the fire, and for a moment he did not speak. He seemed lost in thought, as though listening to voices only he could hear. Then he turned to her, his gaze sharp and unwavering. "Do you believe in curses?" he asked suddenly. Ilara hesitated. "Curses?"
I suppose. I mean, I have heard stories."
"But I don't know if I believe in them." Veyran's lips curved into a faint, almost sad smile. "You will learn. There are curses older than kingdoms, older than time, ones that bind the living and the dead, the mortal and the immortal. I am bound by one such curse, and now so are you, whether you know it or not." Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. The words sounded like a warning, yet they also carried a strange allure. She had always felt that life had something more hidden, something just beyond reach, and now she was staring straight into it. What do you mean, bound?" she asked, her voice trembling. Bayrain's eyes softened again, but a flicker of pain and anger remained. "Long ago I loved someone who bore a fragment of my soul, or perhaps I bore a fragment of hers. When she died, part of me died with her. The curse was born from that loss. It has followed me, haunting me, feeding on my guilt and sorrow for centuries, and now it has found you." Ilara's mind swirled. She could feel it, though she could not name it. A connection, invisible yet undeniable, linking her to this ancient being and his long-lost love. Her pulse raced. She was both terrified and mesmerized. "You don't understand yet," Veyran said gently, sensing her fear. "But soon, you will see that nothing in your life has been accidental. Every step, every choice has led you here. And now you must choose. Will you accept what you are, or run from it?" Ilara swallowed hard. I don't know. "I am scared. I have never faced anything like this before." Veyran stepped closer, his presence overwhelming yet oddly comforting. "Fear is natural. Fear keeps you alive. But you cannot hide from fate. And tonight, you are part of it." The storm outside grew louder, the wind rattling the windows and shaking the chandeliers. A flash of lightning illuminated the hall, and for a brief moment, Ilara thought she saw shadows moving independently of the firelight, like living creatures watching them. Veyran's gaze flicked toward the shadows, his expression hardening. "The world beyond these walls senses the bond between us," he said quietly. "Creatures of darkness, remnants of old magic. They will come, and they will not wait for permission." Ilara's breath caught. She had always believed the world to be ordinary, filled with mundane worries and simple pleasures. Now she realized how small her understanding had been. Danger and magic were real, and she was caught in the center of it.
"You must learn quickly," Veyran continued, his voice calm but urgent. "You must understand your strength."
And your connection to me, for what comes next will not be gentle. Ilara nodded, though fear and uncertainty churned inside her. She felt powerless, yet there was a spark within her, something she could not yet name, a hint of courage, of magic, of potential she had never imagined. Veyran studied her, his eyes searching for a sign, any sign, that she could bear what was coming. The hall was silent, except for the storm, and in that silence, something shifted. The air seemed to thrum with energy, as if the castle itself were alive and aware of their presence. A sudden noise echoed from the far end of the hall, a soft creak, almost like a whisper. Both Ilara and Veyran froze. The shadows flickered, elongating and twisting. The storm outside raged in response, as if warning them of an approaching danger. Veyran's eyes narrowed. "You are not alone," he said, his voice low and commanding. "Something has sensed you. Something that has waited a long time for this moment." Ilara's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Veyran took a step forward, his presence shielding her from fear, though it did not erase it. "Bear, soon you will understand. But for now, trust me. Trust that I will protect you. And trust that the moment you stop fearing, you will begin to see." The air grew colder. The shadows deepened. And for the first time since she had entered the castle, Ilara realized that her life had irrevocably changed. She was no longer merely a waitress, serving drinks in a grand hall. She was part of a story far older than herself, a story of love, loss, and magic. And outside, beyond the locked doors, the storm seemed to pulse with life, as if the world itself waited for what would come next. Ilara's breath caught in her throat. She felt the weight of destiny pressing down on her, the pull of an ancient connection, and the undeniable presence of the vampire king beside her. A man whose heart had been frozen for centuries, yet now beat faster at the sight of her. She realized with both fear and awe that she could never go back. The shadows in the hall seemed alive. They shifted and twisted around the edges of the flickering firelight, as if sensing the tension between the vampire king and the mortal girl who had entered his life. Ilara's heart pounded, each beat echoing in her ears like a warning drum. Outside, the storm still raged, thunder rolling across the castle walls and lightning illuminating the twisted spires of the ancient fortress. Veyran's eyes glimmered in the dim light, molten silver reflecting both his power and the flicker of unease that stirred within him. He had sensed the shadow creatures approaching, but he had not expected them to respond so quickly. The castle walls were strong, enchanted against ordinary threats, yet these beings were not ordinary. They moved through the storm as if drawn by the invisible threads connecting him to Ilara. "You are frightened," he said, his voice low, almost gentle, though it carried authority that made her stand still. "Good! You should be!" "What comes next is not for the faint of heart." Ilara nodded, though her voice caught in her throat.
I am not sure I understand."
"Why me? Why now?" Veyran studied her, the light of the fire dancing across his angular features. "Because you carry what I lost," he said quietly. "And because the curse that binds me has now found you." Ilara felt a chill run down her spine at the word curse. It sounded like something out of the stories she had heard as a child, tales of dark magic, broken promises, and punishment that spanned generations. Yet here she was in the heart of the Vampire King's castle, hearing it spoken as though it were real. What is this curse?" she asked, stepping closer, despite the fear that curled like ice in her stomach. Veyran's expression darkened. He walked toward the center of the hall, each step measured and heavy. "Long ago I loved a mortal woman," he began, his voice thick with memory. Her laughter could light the darkest night. Her presence could warm even a heart turned to stone by time. But she was taken from me, by betrayal, by circumstance, by forces I could not control. Ilara listened, captivated, despite herself. There was pain in his voice, centuries of sorrow that seemed to press down on the room like a tangible weight. The curse was born from that loss, Veyran continued. A fragment of my soul tied to hers bound me to centuries of regret. I could not die, but I could not live freely.
I could not find peace. And now?
The scent you carry, the very essence of your being, tells me that a fragment of her has returned. Or perhaps you are more than a fragment. Perhaps you are the key to breaking the chains that bind me. Elara's hands trembled. She had always thought of herself as ordinary, unremarkable, yet here was a man, a being older than time, speaking of her as if she held the weight of centuries in her very existence. I don't understand, she said softly. I am not her.
I am not anyone from your past. I am...
Me. Veyron's eyes softened, though a shadow of doubt lingered. Perhaps you are. Perhaps you are also her, in ways neither of us can yet see. The threads of fate are tangled. They do not follow simple rules. And sometimes, the past returns in forms we cannot predict. Elara shivered. There was truth in his words. She could feel deep within her, though it frightened her. She had always felt that life held more than she could see, but never had she imagined that she would be part of something so vast, so dangerous, and so magical. A sudden noise drew their attention. From the far end of the hall, a faint scratching sound echoed, soft at first, then growing louder. The shadows along the walls deepened, stretching and twisting as if alive. Veyron's eyes narrowed. They are here, he said quietly. The creatures of the storm. They have come. Elara's heart raced. She had no idea what he meant, but instinctively she stepped closer to him, feeling both fear and an odd sense of safety in his presence. What are they? She asked. Veyran's gaze flicked toward the shadows. Remnants of old magic, he said. Creatures born from curses, from anger, from forces older than kingdoms. They have sensed the bond between us. They will try to claim you or test me. I cannot allow them to succeed. The shadow seemed to ripple in response, moving closer to the center of the hall. Elara felt a strange pull, as if the air itself were charged with invisible threads, tugging at her very soul. She stumbled back, fear rising, but Veyron's hand shot out, steadying her. You have power, he said, his voice low and urgent. A power you do not yet understand. The curse that binds me has awakened something within you. You are stronger than you believe.
Elara shook her head. I don't know how. I've never done anything like this.
Veyran's gaze softened. None of us begins with knowledge of our strength. We awaken it when we are tested, when the world demands it. The shadow creatures move faster, their forms shifting like smoke, curling toward them with quiet menace. Veyran raised his hands, ancient symbols glowing faintly along his skin as he whispered words in a language older than any living soul. A barrier of shimmering light expanded around them, holding the shadows at bay, though the creatures hissed and struck at it, testing its limits. Elara's pulse quickened.
I can feel it, she said. Something inside me, like heat.
Like energy. Veyran nodded. Yes, that is your power awakening. Do not be afraid. Channel it. Let it flow through you.
Elara closed her eyes, focusing.
At first nothing happened. The shadows pressed closer, the barrier flickering. Then a small surge of warmth pulsed from within her chest, spreading to her hands. Her palms glowed faintly, light tinged with soft silver, and the shadows recoiled, screeching as if burned by the invisible force. Veyron's eyes glimmered with surprise and approval. Good. You feel it. You can control it. But you must learn quickly. There is more to come. The shadow shrieked, twisting violently, and with a sudden surge, one darted past the barrier, moving toward Elara with unnatural speed. Fear gripped her, but before it could overwhelm her, she raised her hands instinctively. A pulse of light shot from her palms, striking the shadow. It dissipated into smoke with a hiss, leaving a faint echo of energy in the air. Veyran stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. You are stronger than I feared, he said. But strength alone will not save you. You must understand the connection we share. The curse is not just mine. It touches you. It binds us. Elora's eyes widened.
Binds us?
How? Veyron's gaze softened, though it was heavy with centuries of sorrow. The woman I loved, she bore a part of my soul. When she died, it remained unclaimed, wandering through time and memory. Somehow, some fragment of it has returned in you. You are connected to me, to her, in ways you do not yet understand.
Elara shook her head, struggling to comprehend. I don't know if I can.
I've never felt anything like this before. It's too much. Veyron's expression softened even more. I know. That is why I must guide you. That is why I cannot let you leave. The curse will try to destroy us both if we are not careful. But together, perhaps we can end it. Perhaps we can find a way to break the chains that have bound me for centuries. The storm outside reached a crescendo, the wind howling and rain striking the windows like a chorus of angry voices. The shadows twisted again, but this time they seemed hesitant, sensing the bond between Veyron and Elara, recognizing the power that now flowed between them. Elara took a deep breath, focusing on the warmth in her hands, the energy that hummed through her veins. For the first time she felt a spark of confidence, of control, of purpose. She was no longer just a frightened girl, trapped in a castle. She was a part of something ancient, something powerful, something that could change the course of fate itself. Veyron watched her closely, noting the change. The fear in her eyes had not disappeared entirely, but it had shifted. There was now determination, courage, and the faintest glimmer of hope. "You are ready," he said quietly, though his tone carried the weight of warning. "But the night is not over. More challenges await, more dangers lie beyond these walls. And you must face them." Elara nodded, her heart still racing, but a strange calm settling over her. She was no longer merely a witness to the world of magic and darkness. She was a participant. And she would not falter. The shadows retreated to the edges of the hall, coiling like living smoke, but their presence lingered. The storm outside began to ease slightly, though the tension in the castle remained thick, almost tangible. Veyron turned to her, his gaze intense. "Rest now, if you can, but know this, the curse will not sleep. The past is never truly gone, and tomorrow will demand more of you than you have ever given." Ilara's hands were still warm with energy, her pulse slowing, but her mind raced with questions. Who was she truly? Why had she awakened this power? And what did Veyron mean by the curse binding them together? She could not answer these questions yet. But one thing was certain. Her life had changed forever. She was no longer merely a mortal girl serving drinks in a grand hall. She was bound to the Vampire King by threads older than memory, by power, by fate. And the shadows, they would return. The hall was silent now, but tension lingered in the shadows like a living thing. The storm had subsided slightly, leaving only the distant rumble of thunder. Yet the castle seemed charged with invisible energy. Every stone, every flicker of candlelight seemed to pulse in time with Elara's heartbeat. Her hands were still warm from the power she had awakened, but her mind raced with questions she could not answer. Veyron stood near the hearth, his eyes sharp and alert. The figure from the shadows had not moved since its first appearance. Cloaked, silent, its presence radiated an authority and power older than even Veyron himself. The Vampire King's jaw tightened. He had faced creatures of darkness before, but there was something in this being's presence that hinted at a force beyond any battle he had ever fought. "You must stay close," he whispered to Elara. His hand brushed hers, not touching fully, but enough to ground her. "Do not stray. They will test you. Test both of us." Elara nodded, trying to steady her trembling hands. I am ready," she said, though her voice wavered. She felt fear, yes, but also determination. She had seen her power, felt it rise from within her, and now she knew she could not run. The cloaked figure moved suddenly, stepping into the light. Its face remained hidden beneath the hood, but its eyes glimmered faintly, ancient and knowing. "The curse is not easily broken," it said, its voice like wind through hollow trees. "The bond you share is stronger than either of you yet realize, but only by embracing it can you survive what is to come." Veyron's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice commanding and dangerous. The figure inclined its head slightly. "I am a guardian of the old magic. I have watched over the curse since its birth, and now the time has come for it to either end or claim all who are bound to it." Alara's pulse raced. She had never felt so small and yet so significant. What do we need to do?" she asked. The guardian's gaze shifted to her, piercing and assessing. "You must face the past. You must accept your connection, embrace the power within you, and choose whether to fight the curse together or allow it to consume you. Only then will the chain be broken." Veyron's jaw tightened. "And if we fail, then the curse will not end," the guardian said, its voice steady. "It will grow. It will twist the bond between you, and all will be lost." Alara swallowed hard. She felt the weight of the words pressing down on her, heavy and unavoidable. She glanced at Veyron. There was no fear in his gaze now, only determination, the kind that had built empires, led wars, and survived centuries of solitude. Yet beneath that determination, she saw the hint of vulnerability, the fragile thread of hope that only she could nurture. "We will face it," she said softly, her hands glowing faintly as she drew power from the bond they shared. "Together." Veyron's eyes softened. "Yes," he said quietly. "Together." The guardian stepped back, raising its hands. "Then begin." Suddenly the shadows around the hall coalesced into tangible forms, dark, twisting shapes with glowing eyes, moving as if alive. They circled Veyron and Alara, testing their resolve. The storm outside roared again, as if in response to the surge of magic. Veyron raised his hands, ancient symbols glowing along his skin. He whispered words older than memory, drawing the shadows toward the light of his power. Alara followed, focusing her energy, feeling the warmth rise from within her. Together their powers intertwined. Silver light from him, gentle yet fierce energy from her, forming a barrier that held back the advancing shadows. "You are stronger than I expected," Veyron said, his voice low. "But the curse is clever. It will not be broken easily." Alara took a deep breath, closing her eyes. She reached out with her mind, feeling the threads of magic that connected her to Veyron and to the past she had never known. She saw flashes of memories, laughter, warmth, betrayal, sorrow, all tied to the fragment of the Vampire King's lost love that had awakened within her. "I see it now," she whispered. I understand the connection. It is not just his past. It is ours." Veyron's eyes glimmered with surprise and hope. "Yes," he said. "It is ours. And now we must decide." The shadows pressed closer, but Alara felt no fear. She felt power, focus, and clarity. She raised her hands, drawing energy from the castle, from the storm outside, from the bond she shared with Veyron. The light from her palms surged, joining with his, forming a river of silver and warmth that flowed through the hall, cutting through the darkness. The shadows shrieked, twisting violently, but the combined power held firm. Then a single shadow broke free, larger and darker than the rest. It lunged toward them, a manifestation of the curse itself, ancient and malevolent. Alara felt her energy spike, her heartbeat sinking with the pulse of the magic. She focused, channeling everything she had learned in the past nights, everything she had felt, every fragment of courage she had found. The shadow collided with the light, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. Veyron's hand brushed hers, steadying her. "Together," he whispered.
Together, she echoed.
The light surged, blinding in its intensity. The shadow shrieked, twisting and screaming, then slowly began to dissipate, its darkness unraveling into smoke. The remaining shadows recoiled, hesitant now, their forms weakening as the combined energy of their bond grew stronger. Elara felt exhaustion wash over her, but it was accompanied by a profound sense of clarity. The curse was not merely a punishment. It was a test of courage, of connection, of love and trust. And together they had passed it. The last of the shadows dissolved into nothingness, leaving the hall quiet and still. The storm outside eased, rain falling gently against the windows, thunder reduced to a soft echo. The castle seemed to sigh, a release of tension that had lasted for centuries. Veyran turned to Elara, his expression unreadable at first, then softening into something almost tender. "You have done more than survive," he said quietly. "You have awakened what was lost, what I thought could never return."
Elara blinked, feeling both relief and awe. I only followed what I felt.
You never imagined, Veyran said, stepping closer. But you are stronger than you know. And stronger than I have allowed myself to hope. For a moment they simply stood there, the firelight flickering across their faces. No words were necessary. Their bond, tested and strengthened through danger, had transformed into something undeniable, a connection of trust, courage, and unspoken affection. The guardian stepped forward again, silent until now. "The curse is broken," it said, its voice carrying both finality and wisdom. "But the bond between you remains. It will guide you, protect you, and challenge you as you continue. What you have faced tonight is only the beginning of your journey." Veyran inclined his head. "Thank you," he said quietly. Then, to Elara, he added, "Whatever comes next, we face it together. You are no longer merely a witness to my world. You are part of it. And I will not let you face it alone." Elara felt warmth rise in her chest, a mixture of relief, pride, and something deeper, something she could not yet name, but knew was powerful. I will stay," she whispered. "Together." Outside, the storm had passed completely. Moonlight spilled into the hall, casting soft silver light across the marble floors. The shadows had retreated, the curse had ended, and yet the castle seemed alive with possibilities, magic, and challenges yet unseen. Veyran's gaze lingered on her, intense and protective, yet there was a hint of admiration, even awe. "You have changed everything tonight," he said. "Not just the curse, but me. For centuries I have been bound by guilt and sorrow, but now I feel hope." Elara smiled faintly, her hand still glowing softly from the energy. "Then perhaps this is just the beginning," she said. Veyran's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability showing through his centuries of power. "Perhaps it is," he said. "But know this, no matter what comes, I will not let go. You have awakened something within me, something I thought lost forever." The hall was quiet once more, yet alive with an energy that spoke of new beginnings. The storm outside had cleared, leaving a sky full of stars that reflected in the polished marble. Elara realized that her life had changed forever. She was no longer an ordinary girl. She was a part of a world older, darker, and far more magical than she had ever imagined. And she would face it, not alone. But even in this moment of calm, a whisper of wind stirred the curtains. In the shadows just beyond the reach of the firelight, something watched. Quiet, patient, and waiting. The guardian's words echoed in her mind. "What you have faced tonight is only the beginning." Elara's gaze met Veyran's. There was trust, courage, and the unspoken promise that whatever came, they would face it together. And yet, somewhere deep in the castle, a new challenge waited, a reminder that the world of darkness and magic was vast, and their journey was far from over. For the first time, Elara smiled fully, not with fear, but with purpose. She was ready.